The diner sat at the edge of station kilos like a forgotten coin, its neon sign flickering the word Nathan's in letters that barely remembered how to glow. Inside, a human chef ground meat with the methodical rhythm of a man who had learned that keeping his hands busy kept his heart from breaking. But that night, something was left at his door, a child who called his food compressed death in a voice that shook with terror. And what he did next would teach the galaxy that sometimes the most radical act of love is simply grinding fresh. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is even more unbelievable than this one. The kitchen exhales steam like a dying lung. Nathan Cole stands at the steel counter, his chef's white stained with years of grease that no amount of scrubbing can erase. The grinder sits before him, heavy as a headstone, its throat open and waiting. He feeds it, a strip of beef, pale red and marbled with fat, and turns the crank. The meat spirals through the blade, emerging in tender coils that pile into a steel bowl. His shoulders move with the rhythm of prayer, though he stopped praying 3 years ago when the transport crash took his wife and left him with a daughter and a dream that tasted like ash. Station Kelos hums around him, a sprawling hive of glass and chrome where 100 species trade in currencies he cannot pronounce. The diner occupies a corner slot in the lower market, where the lighting flickers and the air smells like ozone and regret. Through the service window, he can see Emma, his daughter, 7 years old with her mother's dark eyes. She sits at the counter doing homework on a cracked tablet, her legs swinging above the floor. She does not complain about the empty seats, the silent register, the way other children stare at her in the corridors and whisper the word human, like a diagnosis. Nathan finishes grinding and shapes the meat into patties with his palms. His hands remember the weight, the give, the way moisture beads on the surface when the ratio is right. He learned this from his father, who learned it from his, a chain of knowledge stretching back to Earth before the Exodus, before humanity scattered across the stars like dandelion seeds in a storm. The other vendors mock him for cooking primitive food. They sell nutrient cubes, synth paste, flavor tabs that dissolve on the tongue and deliver calibrated satisfaction. His burgers, they say, are inefficient, unsophisticated, a waste of biology. He does not argue. He simply cooks. The griddle hisses when he lays the patties down. Fat renders, smoke rises, and for a moment the diner smells like home, like a memory he can almost touch. Emma looks up from her homework and smiles. It is a small smile, cautious, the kind that knows disappointment is always waiting just outside the door. He smiles back and flips the burgers, watching the char. Lines form like constellations on meat. No customers tonight. No customers last night. The rent is due in 5 cycles, and the landlord, a Threscan with eyes like black marbles, has stopped accepting excuses. Nathan plates the burgers anyway, sets them on the counter between himself and his daughter. They eat in silence, the kind that is not empty but full, swollen with things they do not need to say. Emma takes careful bites, chewing slowly, savoring what little they have. Outside, the station's neon bleeds through the windows, painting their faces in shifting hues of pink and green. Nathan watches the crowd pass, aliens of every shape and size, their lives urgent and indifferent. None of them stop, none of them look, and then, just as he is about to lock the door, he sees her. A small figure huddled against the frame, her skin a pale lavender, her eyes too large for her face. She is shaking. Nathan opens the door and the cold rushes in like a held breath released. The child flinches, pressing herself against the wall as if she could dissolve into it. Her lavender skin catches the neon light, reflecting it in patterns that shift with her trembling. She wears a simple gray tunic, torn at the hem, and her feet are bare against the station's metal grating. Her eyes, enormous and golden, fix on him with a mixture of terror and something else he cannot name. Behind her, the corridor stretches empty and indifferent. He crouches slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. Emma appears at his shoulder, her presence warm and curious. The alien child's gaze flicks to Emma, then back to Nathan. Her mouth opens, and a sound emerges, clicking and melodic, shaped by a throat not meant for human language. The translator chip embedded in the doorframe flickers, struggling to pass her words. It manages only fragments: hungry, alone, death. Nathan extends his hand, palm up, empty. The universal gesture of offering nothing but intention. The child stares at his hand, as if it might transform into something else, something dangerous. Then, with movements careful as a bird testing a branch, she places her small, three-fingered hand in his. Her skin is cool, textured like fine sandpaper, and he can feel her pulse racing beneath the surface like a hummingbird's heart. He guides her inside. Emma pulls out a chair, the legs scraping against the floor, and the alien child sits, her posture rigid, her eyes tracking every movement in the kitchen. Nathan returns to the counter and retrieves one of the burgers he made for himself and Emma. It sits on a plain white plate, still warm, the bun toasted golden, a slice of tomato and lettuce arranged with the kind of care that comes from muscle memory. He sets it before her. She stares at it as if he has placed a severed limb on the table. Her translator crackles again, and this time the words come through clear and cold. "Compressed death," she says. Her voice carries the weight of absolute conviction, the kind that comes from experience rather than belief. Nathan freezes. Emma's hand finds his arm, squeezing gently. The alien child is shaking harder now, her golden eyes wet with something that might be tears if her species cries the way humans do. She pushes the plate away, not with disgust, but with the desperate rejection of someone who has learned that food can be a weapon, that sustenance can carry suffering in every molecule. Behind them, the door opens again. A tall figure enters, scales gleaming like oil on water, robes elegant and dismissive. Vorik, a Cecilan administrator, his face arranged in what might be a sneer if his species had lips. "Take her," he says, voice bored. "She is refuse, broken. We leave her here." He turns and walks away before Nathan can respond. The door closes. The child stares at the burger, and Nathan realizes he has been given something more fragile than hunger. He has been given fear. Nathan does not move the plate. He leaves it where the child pushed it, a boundary she has drawn that he will not cross. Instead, he returns to the kitchen and opens the cooler, the cold air washing over his face like a baptism. Inside, wrapped in butcher paper, sits a fresh cut of beef. He lifts it onto the counter, the weight solid and honest in his hands. Emma watches from her seat, understanding without words what her father is doing. The alien child's eyes follow him, wary but curious. Nathan unwraps the meat slowly, letting the paper fall away to reveal the deep red flesh, the white marbling of fat running through it like rivers on a map. He does not explain. He simply shows. His hands move across the surface, pressing gently, testing the texture, the give. This is not compressed. This is not processed. This is what it is. He reaches for the grinder and pauses, meeting the child's gaze. Her translator remains silent, but her posture has shifted, leaning forward slightly, the rigidity in her shoulders easing by degrees. Nathan feeds the meat into the grinder's throat, turning the crank with steady pressure. The blade catches, pulls, transforms. The meat emerges in soft spirals, and he lets them fall into a glass bowl so she can see every strand, every fiber, the way it remains distinct and textured rather than compressed into uniform density. The child stands. Her movements are hesitant, testing the air for danger the way prey tests wind for predators. She approaches the counter, her bare feet silent on the worn floor. Emma shifts to make room, a small gesture of welcome that costs nothing and offers everything. The alien child stops at the counter's edge, her golden eyes fixed on the bowl of ground meat. Nathan scoops a small amount onto a clean plate. He does not shape it, does not cook it. He leaves it raw and exposed, evidence rather than meal. Then he does something he learned from his father during the Exodus, when trust was currency and words often failed. He takes a pinch of the raw meat and places it in his mouth, chewing, slowly, his expression neutral. Emma does the same, her face scrunching slightly at the texture, but trusting her father's purpose. The child watches. Her translator crackles, and a single word emerges. "Why?" she says. Nathan wipes his hands on his apron and crouches again, meeting her at eye level. "Because you need to see it is not death," he says. "It is change. The meat was alive. Now it feeds life. That is not the same as being crushed into forgetting." Her hand reaches out, 3 fingers trembling, and touches the raw meat. She brings a small amount to her mouth. Her eyes close. The translator hums. Then, softly, almost too quiet to hear, a word forms. "Different," she says. Nathan nods. "Different," he agrees. The child's name comes in pieces over the next hour, assembled like a puzzle from fragments her translator can manage. Ziri. It sounds like wind through narrow spaces, soft and persistent. She sits at the counter now, no longer perched on the edge of her chair but settled, her small frame still tense but no longer coiled to flee. Emma has placed a cup of water before her, and Ziri drinks in careful sips, watching Nathan work with an intensity that feels like studying rather than observing. He shapes the ground meat into a patty, his palms pressing gently, forming without compacting. Ziri's eyes track every movement, her head tilting when he reaches for the salt, the pepper. The simple seasonings that his father taught him were the difference between feeding and nourishing. He does not rush. Rushing would break whatever fragile thread is forming between them, thin as spider silk and just as crucial. The griddle heats, and he lays the patty down. The sizzle fills the kitchen, and Ziri flinches at the sound. Nathan keeps his movements slow, predictable. He points to the meat, then to the flame beneath the griddle, then makes a gentle motion with his hands, showing transformation rather than destruction. Emma, understanding, draws on her tablet, sketching a simple diagram of before and after. The raw meat and the cooked meat, connected by an arrow labeled with the word heat in 3 languages. Ziri studies the drawing. Her translator struggles, then offers a phrase. "Make safe," she says, and there is a question in her tone. Nathan nods. "Heat kills what might harm you," he says, "but it does not kill what nourishes." He flips the burger, and the cooked side reveals itself, browned and crusted, the Maillard reaction creating complexity from simplicity. Ziri leans closer, her nostrils flaring, taking in the scent. When the burger is done, Nathan plates it and cuts it in half, revealing the pink center, the juice that runs clear, the texture that remains tender rather than compressed into submission. He places one half before Ziri and keeps the other on the cutting board. Then he does something his wife used to do when Emma was learning to eat solid food. He takes a bite of his half first, chewing slowly, his expression open and calm. Emma follows, her small hands lifting her piece, taking a bite with exaggerated enjoyment. Ziri watches. Her hands hover over her half, fingers trembling. Nathan can see the war inside her, fear battling hunger, memory wrestling with need. He does not encourage, he does not coax. He simply waits, his presence steady as a lighthouse in fog. Ziri's fingers close around the burger. She lifts it, and the weight seems to surprise her, as if she expected it to be heavier, denser. She brings it to her mouth. The first bite is small, tentative. Her jaw works slowly, and then her eyes widen. Ziri chews with the careful deliberation of someone decoding a language written in flavor. Her eyes remain wide, golden irises expanding as if trying to drink in more than light. Nathan watches her throat work, the small muscles contracting as she swallows. Emma has stopped eating her own burger, her attention fixed on the alien child with the kind of hope that children carry before the world teaches them to guard it. Ziri sets the burger down. Her hands tremble, and for a moment Nathan fears he has failed, that whatever memory haunts her has proven too strong. But then her translator crackles to life, and the word that emerges stops his breath. "Alive," she says. The burger is alive. Nathan exhales slowly. Not alive, he says gently, but made with care. Made to remember what it was before. Ziri shakes her head, her lavender skin rippling with patterns that might be emotion made visible. No, she insists, her voice gaining strength. Alive. I taste the animal. I taste the grass it ate. I taste the sun on the grass. The translator struggles with the next words, clicking and humming before settling on a phrase. Not separated from origin. Understanding blooms in Nathan's chest like warmth spreading through cold water. She is not describing the meat as living but as connected, as carrying memory and context rather than being stripped into pure function. He nods slowly. That is what food should do, he says. It should tell you where it came from. Emma slides off her chair and approaches Ziri carefully, the way one approaches a frightened animal that has just decided it might trust you. Can I show you something? Emma says. Ziri looks to Nathan, who nods permission. Emma takes Ziri's hand, leading her to the small window that looks out onto the station's market. She points to the vendors, to the bright stalls selling nutrient cubes in sterile packages, flavor tabs in gleaming dispensers, synth paste in tubes labeled with efficiency ratings. That is what we eat, Ziri says quietly. Compressed, efficient, dead. Her translator lingers on the last word, repeating it twice as if for emphasis. Emma squeezes her hand. My dad does not make that, Emma says. He makes food that remembers. Ziri turns back to the counter, to the half-eaten burger waiting on her plate. She picks it up again, and this time her bite is larger, more confident. She chews with her eyes closed, and when she opens them, Nathan sees something that was not there before. Not happiness exactly, but the space where happiness might grow if given time and safety. She takes another bite, then another. When she finishes, she looks at Nathan with an expression he recognizes from his daughter's face in their hardest moments. It is the look of someone who has just discovered that the world might contain kindness after all. Thank you, Ziri says. They arrive 3 cycles later, when the diner is full for the first time in months. Word has spread through the lower market in whispers and glances, carried by children whose parents do not notice where they go. Ziri sits at the counter, Emma beside her, both working through plates of burgers while Nathan cooks. A Vinlari child with crystalline skin waits at a table, her guardian watching with suspicious curiosity. 2 young Threskin huddle in a booth, their dark eyes wide as they taste beef for the first time. The door opens, and silence falls like a curtain dropping. 3 figures enter, their uniforms, the sterile white of Galactic Health Authority, their insignias, holographic and shifting. The lead inspector is tall, insectoid, his carapace polished to mirror shine. Kavresh. His name tag blinks in standard. Behind him, 2 others, one humanoid with gray skin, another with too many limbs folded against a serpentine body. Nathan sets down his spatula. Emma's hand finds Ziri's beneath the counter, their fingers intertwining. Kavresh's compound eyes sweep the room, registering each child, each plate, each bite of food that should not exist, according to regulations written in distant towers by species who have forgotten what hunger feels like when it is more than chemical need. Nathan Cole, Kavresh says, his voice filtered through a translator that strips all warmth from the words. You are in violation of subsection 47 of the Nutritional Safety Protocols. You are serving unregulated biological matter to minors of protected species without proper licensing or molecular certification. Nathan wipes his hands on his apron, the gesture automatic, grounding. These children are hungry, he says. I feed them. Kavresh produces a scanner, its surface pulsing with diagnostic light. The device hovers over the nearest plate, analyzing, dissecting, reducing food to data points and risk assessments. His mandibles click in what might be satisfaction, contamination vectors detected, inefficient protein matrices, emotional manipulation through sensory exploitation. He turns to Ziri, and his tone sharpens. This child was placed in protective abandonment. You have no authority to harbor her. Ziri stands. Her small frame seems to grow, not in size but in presence, the way a flame grows brighter when wind tries to extinguish it. "I stay," she says, her translator clear and firm. "He does not poison. He heals." Kavresh dismisses her with a gesture, his attention returning to Nathan. "Your establishment is hereby closed pending investigation. All minors will be removed and examined for toxic exposure." He signals his colleagues, who move toward the children. The Venlari child shrinks back. The Threskin bare their teeth in fear rather than aggression. Ziri steps between Nathan and Kavresh. Her hands are small, her body fragile, but she does not move. "You test nothing," she says. "You understand nothing." Kavresh looms over her. "Child, step aside." "No," Ziri says. Kavresh's scanner hovers in the air like a mechanical vulture, its sensors extending toward Ziri with procedural indifference. Nathan steps forward, placing himself between the device and the child. "If you want to test anything," he says, his voice steady despite the fear coiling in his chest. "Test me. Test my food. Do it here, where everyone can see." Kavresh's mandibles twitch, a gesture Nathan has learned means calculation rather than emotion. "Very well," he says. "Prepare your primitive meal under full observation. We will document every contamination, every violation, every reason this establishment endangers galactic youth." Nathan nods once and returns to his kitchen. Emma and Ziri remain at the counter, their hands still joined, while the other children watch with the silent intensity of those who understand that something larger than hunger is being weighed. The two accompanying inspectors position themselves at angles that allow their recording devices to capture every movement, every ingredient, every moment of the process that Kavresh expects to condemn. Nathan opens the cooler and removes a cut of beef. He unwraps it slowly, the butcher paper falling away to reveal meat that has been treated with the kind of respect his father taught him was the minimum requirement for taking life to sustain life. Kavresh's scanner immediately begins its analysis, projecting data into the air. Cellular degradation within acceptable parameters. Bacterial colonies standard for refrigerated protein. No anomalies detected. The first reading changes nothing in Kavresh's expression, but Nathan notices the gray-skinned inspector lean forward slightly, interest flickering behind professional neutrality. Nathan feeds the meat into the grinder, and the scanner tracks every rotation, every transformation of muscle fiber into ground beef. Structural integrity maintained, protein chains intact, fat distribution optimal for nutritional absorption. Nathan shapes a patty, his hands moving with practiced grace. He adds salt, pepper, nothing more. The scanner catalogs each grain, each molecule, finding nothing but exactly what they are. Simple compounds, fundamental elements. No toxins, no additives, no chemicals designed to make food cheaper to produce and more profitable to sell. The griddle heats, and Nathan lays the patty down. The Maillard reaction begins, sugars and amino acids dancing in heat, creating compounds that the scanner cannot classify as dangerous because they are not. They are simply complex. The way nature is complex. The way life resists reduction to efficiency ratings. Kavresh watches the data stream, his mandibles clicking faster now. A rhythm Nathan recognizes as frustration. The burger finishes cooking. Nathan plates it with the same care he shows every meal, adding fresh lettuce, tomato, a toasted bun. He sets it before Kavresh's scanner. The device hovers, probes extending, analyzing with thoroughness that borders on desperation. Minutes pass, the children barely breathe. And then the scanner's projection shifts, displaying results that make the serpentine inspector hiss in surprise. Nutritional completeness. Exceptional. Contamination. None detected. Cellular integrity. Superior to standard rations. The scanner's projection hangs in the air like an accusation reversed, each data point contradicting the narrative Kavresh arrived with. His mandibles have stopped clicking, frozen in a position that suggests a system error in something more than mechanical. The grey-skinned inspector steps closer to the holographic display, his three-fingered hand moving through the data as if testing its solidity. "This cannot be correct," Kavresh says, but his voice carries less certainty than before, the edge dulled by evidence that refuses to cooperate. Ziri rises from her seat. Emma's hand releases hers with reluctance, fingers trailing apart like a promise to return. The alien child walks to the center of the diner, positioning herself where all the inspectors can see, where their recording devices cannot avoid capturing whatever she is about to say. Her lavender skin shifts through patterns that Nathan has learned indicate deep emotion, colors darkening and lightening like breathing made visible. "I will tell you why I said compressed death," Ziri says. Her translator works clearly now, as if her conviction has burned away whatever interference clouded it before. "My people, the Cecilin colonies, we were fed rations, efficient, nutritious, approved by authorities like you." Her golden eyes fix on Kavresh with an intensity that makes him step back. "They told us it was protein reclamation. They told us it was sustainable. They told us it would feed the growing population without waste. The other children have gone completely still. Even the Threskin, who normally cannot resist movement, sit frozen in their booth." Nathan's hands rest on the counter, his knuckles white from gripping the edge. Ziri continues, her voice gaining strength with each word. "It was us," she says. "The rations were made from our dead, processed and compressed, and fed back to the colonies because we were too expensive to feed with real food. Because efficiency mattered more than memory. Because we were told that sentiment about death was primitive thinking." The grey-skinned inspector makes a sound like wind through broken glass. The serpentine one coils tighter, his many limbs tucking close to his body. Kavresh remains motionless, but his scanner has begun a new analysis, pulling archived data, cross-referencing colony records. Ziri does not wait for his response. "When I first tasted those rations as a child," she says, "something inside me knew. The way an animal knows poison. The way a body remembers what a mind tries to forget. And when I was brought here, when I saw him grinding meat, I thought it was the same. I thought he was hiding death inside food and calling it sustenance." Nathan moves to stand beside her, not touching, simply present. "But it was not the same," Ziri says, "because he showed me the animal. He showed me the transformation. He let me see that death can feed life without erasing what died. That memory can be honored even in consumption." She turns to face Nathan, and her expression carries gratitude too vast for her small frame. "He taught me that food is not efficient or inefficient. It is honest, or it is lies." Kavresh's scanner completes its search. The data streams from Kavresh's scanner in cascades of light, painting the walls with archived reports, colony records, mortality rates that spiked and fell in patterns too regular to be natural. The Cecilin Efficiency Initiative, approved 17 years ago, nutritional sufficiency maintained, population sustainability achieved. Somewhere in the clinical language, buried beneath layers of bureaucratic formatting, the truth waits like a body in shallow ground. Protein reclamation from deceased colonists. Zero waste protocols. Mandatory consumption. Kavresh's mandibles part but produce no sound. The grey-skinned inspector turns away, his shoulders hunching as if struck. But the serpentine inspector, Thane, unfolds himself slowly, his many limbs extending until he towers over the room. He is older than the others, his scales dulled by time, his eyes carrying the weight of years spent enforcing regulations he never wrote. He looks at the burger on the plate, the one Nathan prepared under absolute scrutiny, the one the scanner declared exceptional. "May I?" Thane says. His voice is softer than Nathan expected, textured with something that might be longing. Nathan nods. Thane approaches the counter with movements careful and deliberate, as if the burger might vanish if startled. He lifts it with two of his smaller limbs, holding it as one might hold something sacred. The other inspectors watch. The children watch. Ziri watches with her golden eyes full of understanding beyond her years. Thane takes a bite. His jaw works slowly, and his eyes close. A sound escapes him, low and resonant, vibrating through his chest in frequencies that make the air shimmer. When he opens his eyes, they are wet. "I had forgotten," he says. His translator struggles with the emotion in his voice, rendering it flat when it should be anything but. "I had forgotten what this feels like." Kavresh finds his voice. "Inspector Thane, protocol dictates." He begins, but Thane raises one limb, a gesture that carries authority earned rather than assigned. "I remember my homeworld," Thane says. "Before the stations, before the efficiency mandates, my mother would prepare meals that took hours, using ingredients she grew herself in soil that remembered rain." He takes another bite, and tears track down his scaled face like silver rivers. "She would say that food is how we tell our children they are loved. That taste is memory made tangible." He sets the burger down gently, reverently. "Then I joined the health authority. I learned that food is fuel, that sentiment is inefficiency, that feeding billions requires optimization, not love." He looks at Nathan, and his expression carries apology and grief in equal measure. "I have shut down 1,000 establishments like yours. I have cited 1,000 violations. And every time, I told myself it was necessary, that safety requires sacrifice, that the old ways were dangerous." Thane turns to Kavresh, his full height unfolding, and there is something in his posture that suggests decisions made in the space between heartbeats. "This establishment violates no legitimate safety protocol," Thane says. "The food is clean. The preparation is sound. What it violates is our comfort with forgetting." The inspectors leave with their equipment powered down, their certainty packed away alongside their scanners. Kavresh departs in silence, his mandibles locked in a position that suggests he will spend many cycles reviewing what his instruments told him versus what he believed. Thane pauses at the door, one limb resting briefly on Nathan's shoulder, a gesture that transcends species. "Teach them," he says simply. And then he is gone into the station's corridors, where neon signs flicker like distant stars. The children remain. Word spreads through the lower market, not in announcements but in whispers, in children tugging their parents toward the diner with the flickering sign, in guardians who come skeptical and leave quiet. Within a week, Nathan cannot keep up with demand. Within 2, he has hired 3 assistants from species who thought they had no talent for cooking but possessed the one ingredient that matters most. They care. Emma teaches Ziri to shape patties, their 4 hands and 6 hands working side by side, Human and Cecilin finding rhythm in shared purpose. The Venlari child, whose name is Tessera, learns to toast buns, her crystalline fingers developing a sense for the exact moment when bread achieves perfect golden brown. The young Threskin, brothers named Crix and Vel, discover they have a gift for seasoning, their dark eyes able to detect imbalances invisible to others. Nathan expands the menu slowly, carefully. Not burgers alone, but other foods that carry memory. Roasted vegetables that taste of the soil they grew in. Soups that simmer for hours because patience cannot be purchased. Bread that rises on its own schedule, indifferent to efficiency ratings. Each dish prepared with the understanding that cooking is not chemistry alone but also testimony. A way of saying that what came before matters, that transformation requires honoring origin. The diner becomes something unexpected. Not just a restaurant but a gathering place for the station's forgotten children, those whose parents worked triple shifts, those who were abandoned like Ziri, those who simply hunger for something more than nutrient cubes can provide. They come for the food, but they stay for what the food represents. The knowledge that someone took time to care, that they are worth the effort of fresh ingredients and slow cooking, that they matter enough to be remembered. On a night when twin moons paint the station in silver light, Nathan stands at the griddle with his daughter on one side and Ziri on the other. Around them, the diner hums with conversation in a dozen languages, laughter that crosses species barriers, the sound of spoons scraping bowls clean because nothing should be wasted. Through the window, he can see the queue forming. Parents and children, aliens of every size and shape, waiting patiently for a seat. Emma looks up at him, her mother's eyes bright with pride. "Dad," she says, "we are going to need a bigger kitchen." Ziri adds her own observation, her translator carrying satisfaction. "We are teaching the station to remember." Nathan flips a burger, watching the char lines form, and allows himself something he has not felt since the transport crash took his wife.